What were we talking about? Oh yeah, legalism
of the reformers.
So this is a really good book. Regardless if you like Vance, even if you're a Calvinist, you can't deny the historical quotes he's got in here. I mean, the whole thing, the documentation for this book is, the bibliography is, let's see here. Whoa. Let's see. Hold on.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, this right here alone.
That was almost as many books as you read before you wrote Divorced But Not Demoted.
That I read.
I'm just joking.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know you didn't read any books.
No, I got a lot of quotes in there. Though. No, I read some books. I read a lot of commentaries, I should say.
Okay.
This right here is just, it goes from 653 to 772. Okay, over 100 pages worth of bibliography and documentation for his quotes.
That's impressive.
It really is impressive. And so when you talk about the reformers, these guys hail the reformers. I don't like the reformers, okay? I like Baptists, and there have been Baptists all the way back to the Apostle Paul.
Well,
I really do believe that.
I do say it like this. There are things I appreciate about the reformers,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to have communion with them.
Right. They've got some guts. No
Yeah.
doubt, or had some guts.
And I do like that.
And I think, and I'll say this, I even think there's some of them that weren't even saved that had some guts.
Sure.
Like I personally don't think John Calvin was saved. If you want to argue about that, then all we have to do is just go off his writings. If you want to talk about what the man believed about salvation, I've got the Institutes. I've read many chapters in the Institutes. We can talk about it.
Well, I know we're talking about legalism right now, but if we were talking doctrine,
Yeah.
People have problems with your and my interpretation of James chapter 2
Right.
being dispensationally applied to Jews in the tribulation. But Martin Luther wanted to chop the whole thing out.
Yeah, Martin Luther said one day he's going to light his stove with the Book of James. I think
He called it Jimmy. He used the diminutive.
Oh my goodness! Oh, whoa! The diminutive.
Yeah. Little Jimmy's
little Jimmy's book. Little Jimmy's little hit piece.
He wanted to throw it out of the school, and he said that it was probably because some Jew came along. He hated Jews.
He hated Jews.
He said
hated
Jews. Jew came along and heard that we were all about grace as Christians, so he wrote a book filled with works.
Yeah.
He kept it in his translation, I'll give him that, but he said we should throw it out of the school, and that he wanted to light his fire with it.
Yeah. And the thing is like, we just believe that it applies to tribulation saints.
Yeah.
We don't think it should be left out of the Bible.
And we believe that you can get great application from it.
I just taught through the Book of James a couple of months ago in Sunday school, verse by verse. I mean, we got some good practical application out of it. Yeah, so to act like the modern day IFB movement is just like the worst thing ever, you guys would poop yourselves if you were around the reformers. They were doctrinally wrong about a lot of stuff. So all that to say this, I do think that John Calvin, I don't think he was saved. I have a hard time believing Martin Luther was saved just by the stuff that they wrote about baptism and the Lord's Supper and all that kind of stuff. It was so kin to the Catholic Church. Now, I understand they're coming out of a dark time. They're coming out of a horrible religious system. And regardless if they were saved or not, they had intestinal fortitude to stand up against the Roman Catholic Church. I'll give them that all day long.
I won't say they're not saved, because the Lord knows what you're his, so he'll sort that out.
Well, I agree with that.
But there were Baptists at the time who had beliefs on baptism like we do today.
Sure.
So to try and argue that they were just, and that is a common argument, that they were just coming out of that, they didn't really know, they were trying to formulate these things. No, there were people in existence who believed on topics like we do today as Baptists,
and they knew what those Anabaptists, John
and they would
Calvin,
persecute them for it,
and they would kill them.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that Martin Luther had never heard or John Calvin had never heard. You mean what? There are people that believe that baptism is only for believers and that you get baptized after you get saved and it has nothing to do with your salvation? It's not like he heard that and was like, oh my gosh, I've never... No, he knew about it and still rejected it. Same thing with John Calvin. And they killed these people. Okay, that's what you got to understand. And that's what we're going to kind of dive into today. You talk about legalism. Well, they won't even let a woman in a church if she's wearing a pair of pants. Now, first of all, I have never... Have you ever been in a church where they escorted a woman out because she's wearing a pair of pants?
No, I have not. Now, I have heard of one church that did it, and I do believe it, and they weren't really IFB fringe.
Oh.
It was like the Milby crowd.
Oh, okay.
And you can see that.
I could see that with them.
Because they think Ruckmanites are crazy.
Yeah. These people are
off the rails.
You have no idea how fringe these guys are. But I have never been in a church. I have never known of a pastor that would escort. So, people say, well, they look at you funny if you wear a pair of pants to church there. Okay, well, the Reformers literally killed you if you didn't agree with them. Mm-hmm. We're talking about legalism here.
And not just doctrinally. I mean, they may have not killed you for this, but you could have been arrested over things like hairstyles.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got some stuff here. Let's just dive into it. So when Calvin went to Geneva and became the bishop there, he was known, like this is historical fact, he was known as the Pope of Protestantism. Mm-hmm. And this is what one person said. Schaff wrote, that church history, volumes on church history, says it was a glaring inconsistency that those who had just shaken off the yoke of popery as an intolerable burden should subject their conscience and intellect to a human creed, in other words, substitute for the old Roman popery a modern Protestant popery. That's what was said about Geneva, mm-hmm. where John Calvin was.
Well, and to be fair to John Calvin, from the writings I've read, it does seem like him gaining absolute power in Geneva was the source of a lot of his corruption. Yeah. Like, before that, he wasn't as bad. He goes to Geneva, and he just goes crazy.
I mean, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the truth. That's what they say. This is interesting. Hang on. Oh, yeah, here. A hairdresser. Now, this is let me start up here a little bit further up. Consequently, a, quote, set of severe regulations were introduced even before Calvin arrived in the city. There were laws governing dress, music, games, church attendance, dancing, blasphemy, and oaths. Education became free but compulsory. One citizen who refused to attend sermons was imprisoned, forced to go hear sermons, and finally banished from the city. Naturally, there were many residents of Geneva who rebelled against the strict system of discipline. It was into this unstable environment that Calvin entered in 1536. But rather than separating the church from the state, Calvin used the power of the state to enforce his system of discipline. A hairdresser was imprisoned for 2 days for arranging a bride's hair in an unseemly manner.
That hairstyle is unseemly.
What a great hero of the faith. All these modern day IFB won't let their women dye their hair pink. Okay, well, this hairdresser, did her hair a little different than what Calvin liked. Unseemly is what he said, and she was put in jail for 2 days.
Yeah, and I'm not defending the IFB going overboard. No. I'm just saying that there's a huge lack of consistency that takes place when you throw off on somebody for legalism and then you praise the Reformers for all the great things they were and completely overlook everything that they did wrong.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
And I say that with definitely more appreciation for the Reformers than you had, even though I do have tons of disagreements with them.
Yeah. It's not hard to have more appreciation for the Reformers.
No, I'm aware.
Brother Darren, who is a great guy, teaches at our Bible college, he appreciates the Reformers more than I do. And I told him a couple of weeks ago, I said, boy, I'm telling you, Brother Darren, I hope God thinks better of those Reformers than I did, or than I do. And he might. But
I would say probably.
He might dislike them worse than I do. Who knows? We'll find out.
I might say possibly.
Yeah. But here's what I'll say. Every person has inconsistencies, okay? We turn a blind eye to things. Everybody does. Everybody, if you love somebody or if somebody's really helped you, you will overlook their inconsistencies more so than others. That's just human nature.
Yeah.
Dr. Ruckman used to say that we can never do the we can never do Satan's bidding more than when we point to the inconsistencies of other Christians. And I agree with that, okay, to an extent, because this is a huge glaring inconsistency. Like if we're talking about, well, their school doesn't, their church makes their Sunday school teachers wear skirts and makes the men wear ties. Okay, I'm not putting anybody in jail over it though. Okay, two Anabaptists were banished from the city on account of their theological views. If we want to talk about, the real fundamentalists, there were only 5 core things. I mean, John Calvin had a man killed because of his wording on the Trinity, Servetus. And a lot of these modern day Calvinists, well, I don't know really how much he was involved in that. No. It's documented in this book. He had a great deal to do with it. John Calvin told about Servetus, he says, if he should come to Geneva, I will never bid him to leave alive. He didn't have nothing to do with it. Say something there, Brother Randy.
Well, I agree with everything you're saying right now.
Okay.
And it's just a shame that guys will overlook these things just because it's their pet doctrines.
Right.
And you can support something and yet point out the problems.
Yeah.
One of the issues that 2020 revealed to us is that it's really hard for adults in America to have 2 thoughts in tension anymore. We can't have 2 adult thoughts in our mind that show us, like with President Trump.
For a split second, I thought that I didn't mash the record button.
Oh, that would have been a disaster.
That would have been a disaster. Anyway, carry on.
But good, Jake.
If it wasn't for anybody else, preacher, it was for me.
Well, I'm glad you were under the spout where the glory comes out. But like with President Trump, you had guys who are on the right that they couldn't see him doing any wrong.
Yeah.
And then you have guys on the left, they couldn't see him doing any right when, obviously as a person he did good and bad. But
sure.
If we pointed that out, which I did one night specifically because of his handling with Israel, I had several guys who were a little upset about that.
Well, you shouldn't touch God's anointed, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
No, I agree with all this. Penalties were assessed for making a noise or laughing during church. A gambler was publicly punished. I mean, I don't know what else you want from me. I mean, his salary for preaching was not paid out of the church collection, but was from the city treasury.
Well, and if you are Baptistic, okay, you don't even have to have it on your sign, but if you're Baptistic, you should be against state churches and church states. That's something Baptists have held even before we had the name Baptist.
Yeah. Vance writes this, and I don't want to read too much. I don't want to get in trouble for copyright laws, even though I don't think he'd do anything. He's a good guy. But the rules and regulations introduced in Geneva during Calvin's ministry left no area of life untouched. This is why Calvin has frequently been labeled the Genevese dictator, who would tolerate in Geneva the opinions of only one person, his own. Besides the usual laws against dancing, fornication, dancing, profanity, gambling, and immodesty, the number of dishes eaten at a meal was also regulated. We could go on and on with it.
That's why there were no Baptists there.
Yeah. Calvin was in favor of the death penalty when it came to fornicators and adulterers. He very much defended the killing of Servetus. I mean, he even wrote a book about it, and it was called Defense of the Orthodox Trinity Against the Errors of Michael Servetus. And in that book, he wrote this, quote, "Whoever shall now contend that it is unjust to put heretics and blasphemers to death will knowingly and willingly incur their very guilt." So, I mean, it's just... And I'll leave it off there. Hopefully the point's been made. These reformers were way worse than any modern day separatist Baptist ever thought about being.
Yeah, and again, I'm not encouraging any form of what is being considered legalism, but this also may cause you to take a step back and question: is what is happening right? Not necessarily no, but is it legalism
No.
Because I think that legalism has probably received a new definition within the last 100 or so years.
Right. I would agree with that. The glass guys here, they're supposed to be here at 11:30. These guys, anyway, they're bad. Reschedule. Didn't call me till they missed their appointment on Monday, or what is today? Friday. On Wednesday, rescheduled it for Thursday. No showed me yesterday, and now they're 25 minutes early when I told them they had to be here at 11:30 because I wasn't going to be available till then. Blah blah blah. Anyway.
Now he can't park his truck.
Now he can't park his truck. We got an entire parking lot up there. He wants to pull in right here. Anyway, yeah, it's just ridiculous. It really is. The legalism.
I'm glad we could blast him.
Yeah.
Let us see a lookout.
Hey, Jake, go out there to this man and show him. We need that window replaced up here.
Which one?
Just pull up the blind. We need the glass door there in the sanctuary replaced, and we need the glass window. There's a window on this side that needs to be replaced. We'll just lift the blinds up and you'll see it. Okay. All right, I'll be up there in just a second.
And punch him.
And punch him and tell him John Calvin said hello.
Yeah, and save me a little one.
Yeah. So anyway, man, that infuriates me. I'm infuriated right now. But legalism is not having unbiblical rules and standards on somebody. I don't care. Listen, I know that people are trying to redefine, well, legalism really is the... No, legalism is adding works to salvation. It is for 2,000 years of church history. That's what legalism has been. Are there unbiblical standards put out by the IFB and people of the like? Yes, but call them what they are: unbiblical standards. Okay, it's not legalism though, and I'm not defending these unbiblical standards or these unbiblical, strenuous demands put out. But I'm also not going to redefine the terms just to fit the narrative of somebody else. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk about legalism, if you want to say that's legalism, then let's talk about some legalism. Let's talk about the reformers. Let's talk about some real legalism, where John Calvin teaching about the Lord's Supper and water baptism as necessary means of salvation, receiving grace. Let's talk about those things. That's real legalism. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't fit the narrative. Therefore, it doesn't come. And that's what it is. They want to talk about and I'm not talking about just, these recovering fundamentalists, whatever. I'm talking about anybody that wants to start throwing stones. The inconsistencies of what you hail as the reformers and the great heroes of the faith and John Calvin, he's such a brilliant scholar and all this kind of stuff. And then you want to look at guys like us. We are not the IFB. I don't know what more we have to do to distance ourselves from that. I'm not changing my King James Bible. I'm not getting rid of my hymn book. I'm not going to start dressing like the world. I'm not going to bring in, a rock and roll concert. Those are things I'm not doing, okay? I'm going to wear a suit when I preach. If that brands me as a legalist IFB, whatever, say what you want to. But the dynamic difference between us and the recovering fundamentalists and the IFB, or the ISB as they're now calling it, is the fact that we can actually look at both sides of the issue and say, yeah, you're both wrong. Mm-hmm. We're right. I mean, and this is what it is. A true Bible believer always finds himself somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been careful on the whole idea of IFB.
Be careful for nothing.
Yeah, well, I grew up IFB.
I did. Well, I kind of did.
Yeah, I grew up in the IFB, influenced by the IFB.
You grew up super IFB.
Yeah.
Like, these guys have no idea.
I do kind of agree with that.
Y'all have no idea. My wife, same way. My wife, they were raised in the same church.
Well, but we didn't realize it.
No.
I didn't feel beat down or oppressed.
No, and y'all didn't have bad. Y'all didn't have bad experiences, traumatizing, life-changing experiences.
There was no scandals and cover-ups. So we didn't experience anything like that.
It was just crazy strict standards.
Yeah, we were pretty strict. Growing up, I remember raising my hand in a service that I wasn't going to go to movie theaters, and that wasn't at our home church, but it was at a church we were visiting, and stuff like that. And it's different now. But
It's different now.
I was thinking the same thing. But so I've always been kind of slow to give up that title IFB. But if somebody's gonna brand me, I am a Baptist and I'm a Bible believer.
Yeah.
And had I been around during the time of the writing of the fundamentals, I wouldn't have even been involved in that.
Yeah.
So one more thing, though, on thoughts of inconsistency and false equivalence. I did hear, since you mentioned recovering fundamentalists, I wasn't going to say it, but since you did. Okay.
I'm shocked that you didn't mention it by now.
Yeah.
I didn't want to mention it, preacher, but since you brought it up.
Well, I listened to it. I listened to it because I like to know what's going on in the world.
Right.
I've had people tell me I shouldn't because, that's giving them another click.
Yeah.
And I said, well, y'all wouldn't know what was going on.
Huh?
They're good. It was that broken window up there.
It's the broken door and the window. Both.
Door. You're talking about the door where you walk into the sanctuary?
Yes.
Yeah, I showed
And the window.
Yeah, I showed them both.
Both. Okay,
Okay.
good.
Good job, Jake.
Good job.
But where was I before Jake interrupted me?
Sorry.
It's okay.
I don't even know.
What we were talking about Bible believers, IFB, false equivalence.
False equivalence, yes.
I brought up recovering fundamentalists. I heard him say the other day that the IFB, this is so good, is like the Salem witch trials.
What was you said? Ministry assassination?
Yeah, they were like, it was the live one in Las Vegas, and Brian Edwards just goes, how many of you have had ministry assassination from the IFB?
If they want to talk about ministry assassination, we just need to sit down and tell them some of our stories.
Yeah, mine's been drawn and quartered, hung.
I mean, yeah.
But, well, here's the thing. Okay, yeah, I see the parallel he's trying to create. But nobody is being persecuted to the extremes of the Salem witch trials.
No.
Nobody, just because, and my wife, she's a nurse. She wears scrubs, so the whole pants thing, I'm not even involved in that. But for a person who says that you should wear pants and a lady gets her feelings hurt and leaves.
I mean, you shouldn't wear pants.
Okay.
What did you say?
No, like, if a preacher is preaching and says, you shouldn't wear pants.
Oh, yeah, you said if a preacher preached and said you should wear pants.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, says that, and the lady gets her feelings hurt, leaves, whatever. That's not the equivalent of taking that lady in the parking lot
and setting her on fire.
Setting her on fire. Or taking her down to the river and drowning her.
Yeah, no. And
that's called false equivalence.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Like comparing modern day Republicans to the Nazi regime.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it is. It's ridiculous. And I'm not trying to be insensitive. I'm not trying to be insensitive. I am insensitive. Okay. It is, but get over it. Move on with your life.
Well, I mean,
and I'm not.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Just go somewhere else.
Yeah, and listen, and I am not talking about if you were sexually or physically abused.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. That's a huge deal. That is very scarring. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you got mad because you stopped using the King James Bible, and then people were like, well, yeah, I'm not going to have you in anymore, and you're not welcome here anymore because you're not King James only anymore. They're persecuting us. No, you know what's going to happen.
Well,
we've had guys that have literally tried. I had a dude literally tried to get me removed from this church building, tried to get our church thrown out of this church building because I let divorced guys preach for me. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
Yeah, I hate those divorced guys you have preach for you.
Yeah, why there's one I really hate.
Yeah. Well, I had the unfortunate experience of a divorce, and in these mountains, if you're divorced for any cause,
you'd be better off going gay.
Well, you could get forgiveness.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, once you're divorced, you're done.
Yeah.
But they had issues with it, and they don't preach me. A lot of guys who used to preach me, they're not rude to me. They don't talk badly about me.
To your face.
To my face, and as far as I know, behind my back, they don't either. And they don't preach me anymore. But I don't care. I preach for the guys who do preach me.
Yeah.
And anybody who knows my story, I think if anybody has an excuse, I probably do.
Yeah.
But I think that might be the reason they give me some grace as far as not beating me up over it. But having said that, I don't cry about it. It's just I'm gonna find the places that will have me.
Yeah.
So if you're upset, just move on.
It's okay. Get over it.
It's okay.
It's all right. In the words of Brother Peacock, suck it up, Buttercup. Mm-hmm. People are gonna hate you. Jesus told you this would happen. If you're such a follower of Jesus, and all these guys are hating on you, it's okay. Just chill out. Jesus told you that. Mm-hmm. It's funny because they'll look at the IFB and say, "Yeah, they're persecuting me," and then we'll look at them and or not us specifically, but the IFB will look at them like they're putting clips of them preaching on Twitter. They're persecuting us, like they're both who's the persecutor and who's the persecuted in this situation. And then we're just back here eating popcorn, being like, "We hate you all."
Well, when they had that bastion of theological intellect, Mark Lowry, on. Whom they had to defend.
Hey,
he's not a theologian. He's a comedian. We just let this comedian give us an hour of theology. But he said in there, he said, the lost world doesn't have a problem with Jesus. They have a problem with his crazy followers. And it was something along those lines. That's not what the Bible says.
If they hate you, know that they hated me first. Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the children of God. Therefore the world knoweth him not, us not, because it knew him not.
I mean, that was the worst hour of comedy I've ever heard.
I've never heard so much heresy in a comedy bit in all my life. Oh man, we're meddling at this point, preacher.
I got a joke for you.
Okay.
The Bible's not the Word of God.
That's almost as good as John R. Rice saying that Adam was in the body of Christ.
Well, to be fair, Mark Lowry came out and said he didn't mean it like that.
I'm sure he did. I bet even old Bill Gaither was like, "Whoa, Mark. I don't know if I'm going to have you back on the homecomings anymore." Mark Lowry said one time that Bill Gaither would video any event and call it a homecoming video. He was like, I mean, when the Lord comes back, it's going to be Homecoming Rapture Edition.
Buy it now, Tribulation Special.
Yeah. He is a funny man, though. I will give. He's a funny man. But
just not when he talks about
just
theology.
not when he's talking about the Bible, because then it gets real unfunny quick. All right, well,
at least the Bible believers.
Yeah. Well, at least the people that know their Bible. Well, this has gone off the rails, but that's okay. Well, listen,
I'm glad I was here, preacher.
Yeah. Everybody enjoy this one. Brother Eddie won't be back on for a long time. I've been trying to behave on social media.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
And people are beginning to see the narrative that's true. Whenever I'm around him is when I can't behave on social media.
I like it.
Yeah.
I wish I could. What was I thinking? Is about those recovering fundies. Shucks. I'll probably just have to save it for another time.
The Lord took it from you, preacher. Lord, give me the words I need to say and take those I don't.
Oh, boy.
We need to do an entire podcast where we just talk about crazy stories in these mountains.
Yeah. Boy, if we ever turned into recovering fundamentalists,
we'd have some stories to tell.
Those guys think they got stories.
Well, folks, it's been good. It's been good to be in the Lord's house today.
I can leave right now.
I can leave right now and say it's been good to be in God's house. It's been good to be
This is his basement.
Yeah, this is the basement, the bog, the basement of God.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for watching the Laodicean Lookout podcast. We are in Laodicea, so you need to be on the lookout. Until next time, God bless you is my prayer.